If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Now, if you're listening to this show for the first time, please take a moment and check out oppermanreport.com. And that's where we have a special archives and members section and exclusive content that's available only to subscribers. So if you're hearing the show for the first time on a brand new station, check it out and see the additional content that we have there available to you. Also, you can email me at any time at oppermanreport@gmail.com. If you have guest suggestions, you have comments, or even if you want to make a donation to help support the show and keep us on the air and to keep our investigations going. Today we have a very, very special guest. I'm very excited about this. We have Robert Merritt. Now, you may remember one of our most favorite guests we've ever had on the Opperman Report is Mayor Jim Rothstein. And Mayor Jim Rothstein, one of the things he told us was, he says, Ed, you got to check out Robert Merritt. He knows more about Watergate than anything else. So Mr. Merritt's been involved, co-author of a book on Watergate. But also, too, he's had a very colorful life, to say the least. Okay? Mr. Merritt, are you there?
I'm here, Mr. Opperman.
Thank you, sir. Now tell us about yourself. Who is Robert Merritt?
Well, where do you want me to start?
Let's start
from
at the
West
beginning.
Virginia.
You know what? Let's start at the beginning. How old are you now? How old are you?
I'm 71.
Now you mentioned to me, too, that you take a lot of medications. How's your health?
My health is very bad. It's very bad. Very really is. Would guess from my medical experience, I used to do autopsies years ago, 1,499 of them in a children's hospital. If I had to guess, not being a doctor, I'd figure I probably had maybe 1 or 2 years left.
Oh, no. Well, we'll keep you in our prayers and our thoughts and prayers, and maybe we can get you some support throughout all this. So tell us about yourself and about your life, Mr. Merritt.
Well, Mr. Opperman, I guess it would have to go back to pretty close to my childhood.
Okay.
From West Virginia, I was raised by my grandparents because my mother and father divorced and remarried 16 different times. I think they broke the world record. But at the age of 14 years old, I started taking catechism at the Catholic Church, really out of spiteful reasons. My uncle, who was a professor in Charlotte, North Carolina, he worked for North Carolina University. He and I did not get along very well. This is my mother's oldest brother, and he was extremely prejudiced. He hated the fact that his parents was raising me and my younger brother, Danny. And he hated me with a passion, and along with my brother, too, basically out of jealous reasons that we were staying with his parents. But anyways, he was probably one of the most biased persons on the face of this earth. He hated blacks, he hated Jews, he hated Catholics, he hated everything you can imagine. And he, ironically, by the way, was a wizard at the Ku Klux Klan in the South. He even threatened to stop teaching school when they integrated the schools, and then he decided that, well, if he wanted to make a living, that's what he had to do, so he was forced to do it. But anyways, despite him, I started taking catechism. My family were Christians, and I was raised and born into the Presbyterian Church. And anyways, I was baptized at the age of 12 years old. On my 12th birthday, which was on a Sunday, and the minister baptized me. He baptized me with the water from the River Jordan. But anyways, shortly after that, a couple years after that, just to spite my uncle for no other reason, I decided to start taking catechism, which was the biggest mistake I could possibly do. I stopped going to school, quit school. My grandparents was forced to send me to a parochial school, which was Catholic, called Sacred Heart, was in Charleston, West Virginia. And after school, I had to go across the street to the rectory to take catechism from a priest named Father Colin Donahue. And it was shortly after I started taking the catechism classes. Father Donahue was a Franciscan priest. He wore the brown robe with the hood, the rope cincher with the 3 knots and sandals. And we sit in a little small room, a study room, they called it. And I'd say after a couple of weeks or so, Father Donahue started kicking his sandals off and started playing footsies between my legs. And then he decided one day to come around the table and unzip my pants and start performing oral sex on me with the crucifix over top of my head.
Really?
And he even made a remark that it says in the Bible that whoever shall eat of my body shall have everlasting life. Can you believe he quoted that during oral sex? But then he notified another friend of his, Father Fay, who was a priest in Bell, West Virginia, which was about a half a mile from where I lived in the suburbs. And Father Fay was a priest at St. John's Catholic Church, and he started coming down to visit me. And I was asleep one day in my mother's home, and I had a screen door that was just open. Anyways, he came in, I was asleep, and I felt something wet and warm between my legs. It was Father Fay. Make a long story short, between these two priests, what I considered rape, not molesting, but it was actually rape because it was against my will. Even though I didn't say no, even though I didn't fight them off, but I felt that I was caught in a predicament. I could not dare go home and tell my grandparents this or my mother. I would have had the hell beat out of me. You didn't talk about sex, not in my home. Much less something of that perverse. We couldn't even say the word hell or damn, without getting a whipping.
In those days, what year was this?
This is in 1960.
Yeah, so just imagine, okay.
But, can you imagine that from what we see on TV today, right?
Yeah, well, I was born in 62, so yeah.
Yeah, but, anyways, the sexual thing became quite habitual and became over and over. And it got to the point where I thought it was normal, and even started to adapt to it. And then my physical and personality traits started changing a little bit. One day I was effeminate, the next day I was on the masculine side. People noticed it. People in the schools, people in the community noticed it. I became embarrassed. And, I started getting subject to name calling, that sort of thing. So I decided I couldn't take no more of this sexual abuse. And so I quit school about 2 months before graduation. And I got on the Freedom Train with Dr. King that fall and went to Washington, D.C. With Dr. King's first freedom thing on Washington, D.C. And there I stayed and got a job and started living what I thought was a sexual liberated life, which happened to be only gay life, which is the only life I knew. And it was okay for a while, but I always felt guilty behind every time I committed a sexual act or I was involved in one. And I get many, many different jobs. I mean, I was a waiter, I was a clerk, I worked in many hospitals as orderlies, same thing they call it a nursing assistant today, I guess. But anyways, I worked at Children's Hospital, performed 1,499 autopsies on children from birth up to the age of 21. This was for the NIH, National Institutes of Health, who was doing heart research on children's diseases, and I had to remove the heart and the aorta from all of these children. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pause for a second. I have a delivery at the door. It'll only take me 1 second.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a commercial, okay? And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo.
Mostly hospital work. Mr. Novin, I'm sorry, but we're getting a rather bad echo in the phone
okay.
on the equipment.
Okay, hold on. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, how about now?
Yes, it's going now.
You still hear it?
Okay, in the late 70s, there was an incident that happened in New York City at the Stonewall Club in the Village, which it was a gay club, and it had to do with the police who encountered the gay people there. As you know, during that time, the police everywhere, homosexuality and gays were against the law. The act, you could go to prison for committing a homosexual act from 10 to 20 years in some states and life in others. And anyways, the police attacked the Stonewall Club that night, and they had actual physical altercation behind it. Well, it started nationwide publicity and media attention when that happened. And I was living in Washington, D.C., of course, and so I was the founder of the first gay organization there was, called GLF, Gay Liberation Front.
Oh, really?
And we made little flyers that we passed out. We stood in front of the FBI and the Department of Justice and White House and everything. And on the title it was Are You One Too? And then it said underneath that in small print, the person handing you this is a homosexual. Are you one too? Well, and as you know from the 1970s and what started as a gay revolution, I mean, gays have taken over the world. I mean, they got jobs in the White House. They're condoned by the president and Congress, and have marriage rights and voting rights, and the politicians kiss up to them and have no other choice because they're very strong in numbers. And anyways, it was, I guess that plus the fact I was hanging out in a park called DuPont Circle, which was about maybe 6-7 blocks or so from the White House. And I lived about a half a block from it, and then one street over Massachusetts Avenue was called Embassy Row. All the embassies was there from the entire world, just about. Well, in the park was everything you can imagine, from the blacks to the whites to the hippies to the communists to the Nazis, the pro-Americans to the anti-Americans to you name it, whatever political organization, far left, far right, it was all there. But the park itself was sort of non-political. It was a place where people socialized together, had fun. A lot of them got high on pot. It was a place to socialize, and it didn't make any difference. Some of my best friends were from the Black Panther Party.
Okay, now what year was this?
I'm sorry, this was in 1970, I believe.
Okay, very good.
And anyways, I was in, I think it was the fall of 1970. I was working as a cashier in a drug store called the Southern Drug Company, which was about 1 block from the White House. And there was this hippie that kept coming into my job and hanging around talking to the owner and the pharmacist that was there. It was a pharmacy as well. And I recognized him from DuPont Circle, from one of the people who hung out there. He was wearing old clothes, shabby clothes, had long hair, mustache, beard, shabby, hippie-looking. And every day he'd come in, and when I come to work, he'd come there. He'd stand there for almost 8 hours time I was working and just watch the man talking to the owner. And so that Friday, when I got paid, I was given my pay, which my net pay was $70 a week. And during that time, and it was sort of good money, believe it or not. But my rent was $35, and I had $35 left over for the week to live on. But that particular day, I was fired, and no reason given. And I went home, and this was around 5 o'clock or so that evening, and then around 6:30, 7 o'clock, that same hippie that came in the store knocked on my door, and he flashed a badge. And he told me his name was Detective Carl Schaffler. And he asked if he could come in, and I thought, well, he flashed a badge, and I have no choice. And he came in, and he pushed in a white envelope in my hand, and I had over $1,000 in it. And he said, this is for me getting you fired. He said, I said, why did you do that? He said, because we've been watching you for over a year now. I said, who is we? He said, I work with a task force, he said, with intelligence and with criminal departments. And he said, when I say we, I'm talking about the police department and the feds, FBI, CIA, and military. It was quite a diverse agency. All the agencies were combined into this one thing. And he said, we just want you to work drugs. And so he had me make a couple of drug buys, and I did.
Well, wait a second, Mr. Merritt. Now, you think he got you fired from your job?
Yes, he did. He said he did.
Okay, and then...
He said because he said the government had profiled me. They wanted me to work for them. He said that they had watched me for a year, that I was a very charismatic type of individual, that I could get along with all different types, no matter who they were, what color they were, what political backgrounds they were, and he said this is the type of person that they were looking for.
Okay, and so then you didn't have any problem going to work for them? Like ethical and conscience problems?
No, to be honest with you, I didn't. I thought, I seen the movie called James Bond, and I thought, well, hey, this will be kind of fun.
Okay, great, go ahead.
So, anyways, like I said, I made drug buys for the police, and nobody ever got arrested on any of the drug buys. I thought, what the hell is going on? Why am I buying drugs for them to take home to use for themselves, I guess, because nobody was ever getting arrested for it. So then Carl came in, about 3 or 4 weeks later after the initial introduction. He asked if he could come there and stay with me. And he said it would be, since he goes to the DuPont Circle every day to infiltrate, that, hanging out with me would be a better cover for him. And I forgot to tell you that on the very first night, when he thrust the envelope in my hand with over $1,000 in it, he also went into my bathroom and taken a shower and came out naked. And he said he'd never had gay sex before, which I can tell you as an experienced gay man at the time, that was a damn lie.
Okay.
But anyways, he kept insisting that I was in love with him. I wasn't in love with him. I secretly despised him, to be honest with you. But I was an actor. I felt like an actor. That I was just doing one big show and trying to figure out what the hell was all of this about. And it was like a big puzzle, and I'm just a piece of puzzle trying to put it together. But anyways, he moved in about 3 or 4 weeks later, and he thought that he was my secret lover. And anyways, we did infiltrate the park together. I made quite a few introductions to people that he was very interested in, but they were not the drug type. They were political types. And that's what he finally admitted to me that he was really interested in, was the anti-war Vietnam movement and the overthrow of the United States government and the anti-Nixon remarks that was being made. This is what they were interested in. It was all political intelligence. And it was for the gain, I thought, for President Nixon, who was going to be reelected again. But it was there were so many motives behind it, so many. And I think I was probably wrong on every count that I could think of for a motive, and maybe I was hit the nail on the head of every last motive that I could think of. Because there were so many people involved in this whole thing. But they actually did infiltrate over 200 and some different organizations, and I did. And that was attending meetings, getting on their mailing list, even applying for jobs at political institutions like the Institute for Policy Studies. This is a very famous political think tank called IPS, is most familiar to most people. And highly political. It was a Marxist-Leninist type of organization. It was funded by the Kennedy family. And anyways, I had infiltrated that place. They even asked me to break in there one night, and the maid who was cleaned up the building at night, it was like a 4 or 5 story townhouse, if I remember correctly. Anyways, she was a church-going lady. She was a black lady, and her son was going to church with her. He was only about 16 years old. Well, they planted some drugs on her son and arrested him, and then told her, so listen, if you give us the keys to the institutions, we'll drop the charges against your son. But they planted them on him in the first place, probably drugs I had purchased for them on different occasions. But anyways, they gave me the keys, and then they blocked the street off with gas company trucks. Said there was a gas leak in the street, and they would not allow no pedestrian or auto traffic down the street at all. And they even had police at each corner. And so I was able to get into the building and to come out, sight unseen, and there was no problem at all. And when I went in, I had wiretapped all their telephones, stole their mail. I even had time to even turn it over to the FBI, who copied the mail and gave it back to me within a couple of hours, and I returned it back to the Institute. And the FBI was so thorough that they actually opened the letters up and glued them back the same way, right on the seam. You couldn't even tell they were ever been opened. They even put the staples back in the same holes on different someone's book manuscript that they had, which was quite thick. But they were very diligent, very efficient in their work, I must say. But anyways, I also bugged each one of their offices. They gave me 24-karat gold cross pins. And I just laid one on each desk inside the Institute. And not only them, but there was many lawyers in town that I would go visit, and I would, leave my pen on their desk before I walked out. Gotcha. The pens were the live bug. It had a transmitter in the top of it. So there were these lawyers and all these people would go, the FBI and everybody was listening in to. And, of course, you see a gold cross pen laying on your desk, naturally you're going to pick it up and stick it in your pocket. They had me do things like Jane Fonda came to Washington to talk at a think tank, which was a restaurant on Connecticut Avenue called Food for Thought. And she was talking about how despicable it was for the United States to be in Vietnam and what we were doing to the poor North Vietnamese people. and she had her pictures taken sitting on tiger cages with American GIs being prisoners inside. And anyways, they asked me to go there and record part of the stuff. They already had several informants there who was doing recordings of her. But they asked me to go around to the back door of the restaurant when she came out with her attorney to get her wig for them, which I did. I just simply walked up and jerked her wig off and ran. And I don't think they were trying to embarrass her so much as maybe they was, well, maybe, because she was embarrassed, obviously. But anyways, they wanted to see if I could do the job, I guess. And she's not a very nice-looking woman without her wig, I'll tell you that. But there were so many things that I did. That's one important things that people like to talk about was they rented a room at the DuPont Plaza East Hotel, which was right on DuPont Circle. And they rented a room there for the year. It was completely microphone wired for sound, for photo, and all that. And I had to have sex with 70 different congressmen, senators, ambassadors, and some of their aides to engage in homosexual sex with them. They were being recorded and videotaped.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Merritt. How did you make contact with these senators and congressmen and their aides?
They did. They arranged for me to meet them through different other contacts. Sometimes they would tell me where certain senators and congressmen would be at, where they used to hang out at. I would go there. And I was a cute kid. I mean, I was 6'1". I had blonde hair. I had green eyes. And I was very cute at that age. And I could turn on being femme or being butch or masculine. Either way, I could turn it off, turn it on. So whatever the person preferred, and I was told what they preferred by the FBI before I even met them, they were profiled. And if I was told to act masculine, that's what I did. If I was told to be a little on the femme side, that's what I did too. So.
Now, how old were you at this time?
I'm sorry?
How old were you at this point?
27.
27. And this was a hotel or an apartment you would take them to?
Repeat the question.
You said that there was a room that was wired for sound and video. Was this a hotel room or an apartment?
No, the hotel room that they rented.
Hotel room, gotcha. Okay.
Just for that purpose.
Gotcha.
I had one ambassador. By the way, I will not mention to you or to no one else ever about who these 70 people were. I don't believe in the kiss and tell type of thing. These people, some are alive, some are dead, but even the dead ones still have family, children, and why should I hurt them?
Okay.
And I won't do it.
Let me ask you a couple more questions.
Some of them were so innocent that I was actually their first time thing with them.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. Now, what year was this?
This is in 1971, I think.
71, okay. And now,
we're talking about a span of 1970, 71, 72, 73.
Okay. And now, what branch of the government exactly were you working for at this time as an undercover agent?
I was working only for Carl Schaffler. Carl Schaffler was a MPDC cop, a Metropolitan Police Department cop. And Carl Schaffler it was unknown even to the chief of police that he was really an intelligence agent, and he was working for the CIA, the FBI, and National Security Agency, and military intelligence. So when I worked for him, I worked for all of those agencies and above. Okay,
I got you. Okay, continue, please.
And by the way, I would not work for anybody else. I said, you're not going to stretch me out. I said, I'm going to be working with a dozen people, and somebody is going to get me burnt, meaning to expose me. Because, that role could have been, in fact it was, extremely dangerous to the wrong people. But I was going to tell you that one of the ambassadors of the Italian embassy at that time was one of my subjects at the hotel that they asked me to engage sex with. And he asked me to come over one time to a private apartment that he had rented just for the purposes of bringing boys there. And I told the FBI, they said, well, go see what he wants. And I went over there. He had a glass-top table sitting in his living room, and had the place very plush and very fixed up. But anyways, he asked me to take my clothes off and to sit on top of the glass top table. Well, he removed his clothing and he put his head under the table. And he masturbated while I defecated on his table. That's how he had his got his fun.
Gotcha.
There's no way I could sit here and make this stuff up. But anyways, it was getting my involvement with these people was becoming very, very involved, very extensive, and especially when I got more and more involved in the far left organizations like the Institute for Policy Studies. And some of my assignments were on Jack and Rennie Davis. They were the leaders of the PCPJ, that was a People's Coalition for Peace and Justice, who led the anti-war movement on the city of Washington, the major, massive movements. This is where over 10,000 people was arrested in one day. And I was asked by Rennie and Jack to lead the people to the demonstration. 99% of these people were from out of town. And we organized close to North Capitol Street. Anyways, I led them down the street into the stadium. And when they were in the Seminole, we were going in there to rally for a while before we went to the site, which was supposed to be in front of the White House. And the gates were slammed shut, and everybody was placed under arrest at one time.
Okay.
So I was responsible for that mass arrest. Another occasion, they gave me, when the street demonstrations started, and the people started throwing trash cans and other things into the streets, and started throwing rocks and bottles at the cops, and the cops were throwing tear gas back, and we were being hit by horses and sticks and all of those things, anyways, and these were demonstrations daily for a week or almost 2 weeks. And anyways, the FBI gave me a bag of candy, 200 pieces of taffy candy, and 100 pieces was laced lethally with PCP. And anyways, I'm sorry, not PCP, LSD.
LSD. Was Rennie Davis aware that you were an undercover agent?
I'm sorry?
Rennie Davis. Was he aware that you were an undercover agent?
Not until the articles came out in the Washington Post, and then when they read it, they asked me if it was true, and I said, yes, it's true. And you know what? They had more confidence in me then than they ever did before, after I exposed myself.
Who had more confidence in you?
The anti-war leaders and the people that I was targeting.
Okay, but at the time he was assigning you to this task, he wasn't aware that you were working for the cops?
Yes, after I told him I was working for the cops, yes, okay. In the newspaper.
Okay, but at the time that he assigned you to the task of leading this demonstration, he was not aware that you were working for the cops?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, good. Now let me ask you a question. No. Now we're at the 30-minute mark. Do you need a little break? We can take a commercial break if you want to get a glass of water and come back in about 3 minutes, or do you want to keep going?
Yeah, please. I need a break, please. Very
good. Okay, we'll take a nice little 3-minute and 40-second break. So just sit back and relax, and I'll come back on here and I'll call you, okay?
You want to call me back?
No. We're gonna leave the phone line open, but I'm saying I'll come back on the air and I'll ask for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's 4:51 now by my clock.
There you go. We are here with Robert Merritt. Fascinating character. We met him through Jim Rothstein. He has a lot of information about Watergate. We'll get into undercover activities. We'll be back right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to OppermanReport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We are here today with Robert Merritt. Robert Merritt is a fascinating character, historical, iconic figure that we should all, every one of us should be aware of this man, okay, because the kind of information he's sharing with us today. Now, you can hear the way he tells the story. He's an excellent guest for radio. And the fact that he has not been found by other hosts, it kind of goes to show you that the information he's sharing with us today is information that the powers that be do not want out in the public knowledge. When he talks about this man Shafley that he was working for, this police officer Shafley, this is Shafley, who was the officer who made the arrest at Watergate, arrested the Watergate burglars, the one who was out there waiting out in front, wasn't even on duty that night, who made the arrest, who was pivotal to the Watergate break-in arrest. Mr. Merritt, are you there?
Yes, Ed, can you pull your mic back a little bit, please?
Okay, sorry about that. How's that?
Yes, much better, thank you.
Okay, I get so excited, I lean forward. I'm at the edge of my seat listening to your story. So go ahead, please continue.
Okay. Well, Ed, Mr. Opperman, my story during those first 3 years or so was quite fascinating. It involved infiltrating people's lives, passing out poison candy to demonstrators. 100 people died, by the way, from that candy I passed out. Others was laced with different degrees of LSD, where it made them insane or made them very sick, and only a handful lived. The reason that it was not in the paper about 100 people dying is because it was just like about like when Hitler taken over Germany. You found the story on page 883 at the bottom of the page in a little small paragraph. Well, the same thing was done with my situation, too. They put in the paper in a little small, very article that some hippies overdosed from some drugs, from LSD and other things last night. They didn't say how many, and that was all they said. And nobody gave a damn about the hippies during that time. They were considered the scum of the earth and by the so-called decent people, and definitely by law enforcement. Right. In fact, I was told by the FBI and by other agencies that, if any opportunity ever comes, you have a carte blanche license to do whatever you want to annihilate, exterminate, and terminate, and to help any of these people expire very quickly, because they're nothing but traitors to this country, and you'd be doing a great service to our nation by eliminating them. Of course, all those words, meant kill, okay? There was only one person that actually outright murdered at the instructions of the government, and that was in Alexandria. And I can only tell you the man was a lawyer. I do not know his name to this day because, first of all, it was not in the paper except his obituary, and I did not read it. But it was done with an umbrella where I was crossing the street with him. It was all prearranged as to certain places he'd be at certain times. And all I did was push the button to the umbrella, and the dart came out in the back of his heel, and he dropped over dead in the street with what they assumed was a heart attack, and that was ruled in the autopsy a heart attack. I wanted to get closer to Watergate, if I may.
Well, why would they use you for that assassination? Why wouldn't they use someone who was a professional killer?
I'm sorry?
Why would they use you to...
Because I was very good. I was very good at what I did. I could get close to people. I blended in with people. I had the nerves of steel. Nothing bothered me. I guess during those 1,499 autopsies where I had doctors who stood in the room, these were interns and everything, and they had like 25 doctors in the autopsy room one day, and I started doing the autopsy by myself, and I looked around, and here was 5 of them laying on the floor. They had passed out. So, they couldn't even take a body being cut open, and the government knew all this.
Okay, I'm not
everything about me.
I'm not clear on how you were involved in doing these autopsies. Can you give us a brief explanation of that?
I was working for Children's Hospital. This was the oldest children's hospital, which was on 14th Street and W Street Northwest during the time. The new hospital now is quite a beautiful building. It's on Irving Street Northwest. Northeast, I believe. But I just simply applied for a job at Children's Hospital, and they said, well, we have a trainee postmortem ordainer technician job open, and if you'd be willing to train for it. Well, I had no idea what they meant by postmortem ordainer, and then they explained to me, said, well, we need someone to assist, with autopsies. And said, the government has a contract with us we need someone to take out the hearts and the aortas from children at the age of 21 because they're doing heart research disease from NIH, National Institutes of Health. Well, I thought it would be not fun, but I thought it would be very, very educational, very interesting to do. And I took the job.
And how old were you during that period of time?
I was in my early 20s, maybe about 22, something like that. I know one day I slipped the scalpel and pricked my hand on a child who died with hepatitis, and I ended up in the hospital myself for about 2 months with hepatitis B. I turned completely jaundiced, and my hair turned like almost Snow White, and that was from an autopsy. I had some very interesting autopsies. If I may just tell you about one of those, please, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Mr. Opperman, during that time, we didn't have Medicaid and Medicare. We didn't have welfare systems who paid the bills, for the poor and the indigent. And Children's Hospital was a place where black families had to bring their children to, and poor whites. And those kids who died, 90% of them or more was died because of medical experimentations at the hospital. these were things that doctors were supposed to be doing in the operating room they'd never done before, and they actually killed most of those babies. And of course, that was never listed on the autopsy reports, the true cause of death. But I had one child, a beautiful little girl baby, at the age of 6 months old, who they brought down there and put inside in the freezer. I took it out. I called the doctor and told her. I said, Dr. Kamala. I said, I've got the baby on the table. I said, are you ready to come down? She said, oh, I'm in the cafeteria having coffee with a friend of mine. I says, can you go ahead and start? And I said, yeah, okay. I mean, I knew enough to do it. Right. In fact, I did the complete autopsy. And anyways, when I made the Y incision on the child and lifted up the rib cage, the heart hit 3 beats, and the little girl wasn't dead. But of course, when I moved her up, she did die.
All right.
But I don't want to stop there either. Dr. Kamala, that I just mentioned, was a doctor from India. He was studying to be a doctor, a pathologist at Children's Hospital. She wore the sari. She had the little star painted in her forehead, the whole 9 yards. But she'd come in the autopsy room, and I worked with her many times, and she would shut her eyes and run her fingertips over the body from head to toe, back and forth for a couple of minutes before she would perform it. I thought, well, it's a Indian ritual, or she's saying a prayer or something. I didn't pay any attention to it. And then I asked one day my supervisor, named Ed Riggs, I said, Ed, what is Dr. Cameron? I said, is that an Indian ritual? And he says, no. He says, don't you know what she is? I said, no, what do you mean? He says, she's a necrophiliac.
Oh, really?
And that's what she was doing. She was discovered, exposed, thanks to me, and I don't know if she's alive today or not. She used to be in her 90s, but she could not get a license in this country, and she went to Canada and became what they call an extern, which was the closest thing to a doctor.
Okay.
I worked at Columbia Hospital for Women, and as an orderly, a delivery ward technician, they called it, but it was just an orderly job. All I would do would pull the beds out of the labor rooms into the delivery rooms, and there's 2 instances there I would like to tell you because it's all connected to my whole story. And that is one woman came in who was having a C-section, a cesarean, and she had about 4 or 5 doctors in there, and 4 or 5 nurses, and they were taking one doctor, one nurse for any delivery. And she was there, was draped off, and they were opening her up. And we were out in the hallway watching too. I asked Miss Turner, Mildred Turner, who was the registered head nurse over that ward. In fact, she was from even from West Virginia, where I'm from. And I said, "Why are all the people here, Miss Turner?" She says, "That's President Johnson's personal private secretary." And said, and she's not married. She says, "We think that's President Johnson's love child."
Oh. Did that baby survive, or was the baby killed too?
I'm sorry?
Did that baby survive, or was that baby killed too?
No, it was kept.
Okay.
I don't know whether she kept it or not, but they didn't kill it. Okay. Well, in a room across the hall, we had a Dr. David Nolan, Nolan.
Okay.
And Dr. Nolan was one of the most famous Washington, D.C. Doctors for deliveries. And anyways, I went into the room after he had finished his delivery and was cleaning up, and I noticed the incubator had a blanket over it. So I pulled the blanket off, and the baby was inside, was struggling for air. And I looked at it, and I thought, well, no one is struggling, but it's unplugged. So I plugged it back in. He walked in the room, and he said, "Did you plug that in?" I said, "Yes, I did, doctor." I said, "Someone forgot to plug it in." He jerked the plug out of the wall. He said, "Get the F out of here now." And he said, "Don't you ever come back here. Don't you ever work with me again either." Again, I went out and asked Miss Turner. I said, "Miss Turner," says, "Dr. Nolan, as it is killing that baby," I said, I plugged it in for air. It's struggling. It's turning blue. She said, "Just leave it alone." Says, "The baby belongs to a girl. His family is filthy rich, quote unquote, and said that they don't want the baby, and they paid Dr. Nolan for his services.
So this was like an abortion after the birth.
I'm sorry?
This was like an abortion after the birth where they...
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, and now, Mr. Merritt, let me ask you a question, because we're down to about 12 minutes left in this hour. How are you feeling? Are you feeling up to doing another hour after this right now today, or you want to...
If you give me like a 5-minute break?
Yeah, we can take as long as a break as you need, okay?
Okay.
So then now you left us off that they had you do this assassination using an umbrella in the street. What were you going to tell us after that?
I did not hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You were describing how you did an assassination using an umbrella that shot a dart. Now,
that's all I can tell you about that one. That's the only one that they ever actually asked me to kill right out, besides passing out that candy.
Right. So then what happened after that assassination? What came along next in this story?
Well, the other stuff goes back to DuPont Circle, to the infiltrations and to the demonstrators, and then getting more and more involved in the far left organizations, and then becoming involved with what was going to be the most famous thing in history, the Watergate break-in. Okay. And I found out about that 2 weeks before it happened, and I'm the one who told it to the government. And instead of them preventing it, they allowed it to happen. And they entrapped those people, and they set them up. And so was the President of the United States.
Okay, so now, you knew about the Watergate break-in before it was going to happen?
Yes, 2 weeks before.
How'd you find out?
I got to explain to you from the beginning with the people at DuPont Circle. I told you I hung out with all different types. Some of those types were to the extreme. These were female impersonators, what they call transgenders today, that cute little name. But one of the drag queens, the name of Rita Reed, was a female name. Real name was James Reed. Worked as a switchboard operator across the street at Columbia Apartments from the Watergate. And Rita went to work one evening, and they were on the switchboard. This is the old PBX switchboard with the holes in the wires, you had to plug in to make a phone ring. And of course you could plug the wire in and listen in on a conversation too. Anyways, that's exactly what Rita did. And a call came in one night, hole number 2, I think it was, that was nobody's supposed to been on that line. It was supposed to be an empty, available line for an extra phone hookup for the building. Then all of a sudden it lit up, and Rita got nosy and listened in, and she heard the conversation about what was going to become a break-in at Democratic National Headquarters.
Did she know who she was listening to?
No.
So she had no names or anything?
But there was more than one telephone conversation. But anyways, when you put it together, it was obviously talking about the DNC offices at the Watergate, and a lot of private names were mentioned during the time at the DNC, which I don't recall at the moment. But anyways, when I told the police and to Carl about this, he became very excited, and he brought back an agent from the FBI and brought back a retired man from the CIA, and they quizzed me over and over and over again about this. And this was early in the morning when Rita told me about this conversation, and she came to the apartment, and she said, "Is Carl here?" Because she knew Carl was going to. I said, "Yeah." So I said, "He's asleep." And she said, "Then let's go down the street. So I have something to tell you that's very important." And when we got on the street, she said, "No, I don't want to talk to you here." She said, "Let's go down to the park." There was a park they called P Street Beach. We went down down the green under the bridge, and then along the creek, what they call Rock Creek, and walked along the stream of water. And she started quoting this poem to me. And the poem is something that she had heard over the telephone, and it was about the Watergate break-in. And ironically, as we were walking and talking, she was certain things. I mean, we were walking by the water, and she didn't tell me where we were going. And at the end of the park, when we came out, the Watergate complex was standing right in front of me. But there was an old gate, like an old fence gate that was actually laying in the water. Someone had thrown it because they were always throwing trash in there. And she looked, but she didn't have it right. She said, "There's a gate laying in the water." And it didn't dawn on me what she was talking about. First, Watergate.
Right.
And anyways, we got to this. She said, "That's going to be the destruction of the President of the United States." She pointed right at the Watergate.
And this was the woman who was the telephone operator who heard the messages?
Yes, not several, PBX.
Right.
Switchboard, yeah.
Gotcha.
But that evening, Rita swore me to secrecy. I betrayed her secrecy. And that evening, when she got off from work at 11 o'clock that night, and we were to her apartment, the same place she always stopped by to see me. We'd go out, it's an all-night restaurant, and have coffee or something. She didn't show up. I went to her apartment. She was gone. I went back the next morning. Not only was she gone, her dog was gone, her furniture was gone, the whole apartment was clean as a whistle. Windows were even wiped down clean. And nobody knew where she was at. And the resident manager of the building said she never heard of such a person. He never lived there.
Okay.
I went to his job, Columbia Plaza Apartments. Well, we don't know anybody by that name. There's no one who lives and ever works there by that name. And I've been there many, many times, talked to her over the desk. Even Carl Nolan knew that she worked there. He knew where she lived, too.
Well, so what do you think happened? Do you think she told someone else, too?
Later when I worked for the FBI threatened me one time. I told them a deliberate lie about this guy named Jack Davis. I was supposed to have followed him. And I lied to the FBI and told him he was going to New York. And so they gave me money to come to New York with him. It was $200 or something. And so when after a couple of days, I reported back to him I did win. And I gave him a bunch of bogus addresses that he was supposed to have gone to. I wasn't even with Jack the whole time, and it was all a deliberate lie. I wanted to discredit myself so I could get out from under the FBI because they just wouldn't let you go. And anyways, one of the agents threatened me. They took me for a ride out in the park, and they said, "If you're deliberately lying to us," and we know you're lying. Said, "Do you think we're stupid?" Says, "We didn't have other FBI watching Jack Davis and watching you too." And I kept insisting it was the truth. And they said, "Okay," said, "you can't work for some more. You're fired." And says, "And if you're doing this for any reason to write a book, make a movie, or whatever," said, "we just want to let you know that you will be floating at the bottom of the Potomac River with cement galoshes on with your friend Rita."
Right. Let me ask you a quick question. It's kind of off topic, but at this time, during all this period of time, when you're getting paid in cash.
Yes.
What did you put down on your income taxes?
I didn't fill out one. They told me not to.
Never did any income taxes. Okay.
And in fact, I can give you my whole life earnings for my entire life up until now, $575.
That's all you've declared?
That's what that's the jobs I actually worked on.
And without being an informant?
Without what?
Besides being an informant?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so most of your money you made being an informant your whole life.
I did work at other jobs like the Columbia Hospital for Women. I worked at Children's Hospital where I got paid. I paid on the book with W-2s and something, but I worked under alias names with alias Social Security numbers.
Okay. Well, you know what, Robert Merritt, we're toward the end of this show. Why don't I'll drop the phone call. And I'll give you about how much of a break do you need? About 10, 15 minutes?
That'll be fine.
That'll be fine? Okay, great.
Yes.
Then I'll drop the call. I'll call you back in about 15 minutes, and I'll talk at the end of the show. Okay, sir?
Okay, so about 15?
About 15.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robert.
Thank you. This is great stuff. Thank you very much. Okay, we are here with Robert Merritt. As you heard, he's almost 80 years old, and he's on all kind of medications and stuff like that. I can kind of hear him struggling, with his voice, and because this does take a lot out of you. But so far, I think this is some incredible information, and we're very lucky to have this guest here, Robert Merritt. You know what? I recognize the name Robert Merritt right now because from the Gay Liberation Front, I've heard this name before. I've heard the name before in connection with Rainey Davis, who was an activist. I think he was with SDS and back in the 70s and stuff like that. And everyone knows the name Carl Schaffler, who was the Watergate arresting police officer. He had the night off. He wasn't on duty that night. For some reason, unknown, he was parked out in front of the Watergate Hotel when E. Howard Hunt, St. John Hunt's father, when Frank Sturgis, and the rest of the Watergate burglars, the Cubans and all these guys, McCord, and these characters were there at the Watergate planting these bugs and doing whatever else. We heard from Phil Stanford, author of what was that? Something about the Call Girl operation, the White House Call Girl, the real reason for Watergate. And we also heard from Doug Caddy that there was a lot going on at Watergate that involved finding little black books of escort services and that kind of activity. We talked to Doug Caddy. I asked him if it was possible that there was a pedophile ring. I asked Phil Sanford if there was a pedophile ring. They all said yes. What's his name? Mayor Jim Rothstein, former NYPD detective. I asked. He came up with told me that it was involving a pedophile prostitution ring, a gay sexual ring, and now here we have today Robert Merritt giving us the same kind of information. Now we're going to bring back Robert Merritt for part 2. Right after this, and don't forget, there's more information, more shows like this in OppermanReport.com in the members section. Thank you.